Like always, the work we're talking about is not just our work. There's been lots of people involved, particularly Jenny Tennyson and colleagues at TSO has made this happen, Lee Dodds and colleagues at Thales and colleagues back at Epimorphos. So, what we're talking about is completely general, but this work has been done in the context of data.gov.uk, and in particular the piece of that programme that's trying to publish structured data in a linked data format. Basically because we have some arguments why we think linked data is a useful thing. It doesn't solve world hunger, it's not the answer to all possible problems, but it has some advantages. It allows us to publish data sets that are joined up. It allows us to give web identifiers, URLs to any piece of the data so we can talk about it, we can annotate it, we'll find the provenance about it, we can find other things that people have said about that data. And if those identifiers are standard and supported and maintained, that means we have ways of talking about things like schools, roads, bus stops in the country that other people can then publish data against, and we can start to build that sort of web of data. And we can do this in a way that is programmable, that you can go and get the data of the slice that you're interested in for your application. When you go back again, you should be able to get the live, the up-to-date version of that data, and do this in a very decentralized, extensible, incremental way. It's not a boil the ocean thing. You can do pieces you can add to it. Sounds really great. We were doing this with data.gov starting almost a year ago. We did some stuff. We released the education data. We said to the grateful developer world, fantastic, this is wonderful stuff, go work with it. And there was a bit of an not quite sure this is what we wanted to see at the moment. So first of all, this notion that you have data represented by identifiers like web identifiers and they link to other bits of data, link to other bits of data, is at some level familiar on the web. People are used to clicking around, but it's not the way that most people think about data. They think about data in terms of tables, and a graph data model starts to be, people have to get their head around that. And then the linked data notion that you can go to an identifier, you dereference it, you stick it in your browser, you get some stuff back, data that you could then work with is great for one thing. I can take a school in the country, I can go to the school, I get back a description of that school. For almost all applications, you don't want one thing. What you want is a slice. I want all the secondary schools above a certain size in my district, so I can go around and gather information on those, decide which one to send my kids to. I want to be able to query this stuff. That's fine, there's query languages, there's the Sparkle stuff, and to your average developer, Sparkle is also a bit alien, the syntax is a bit odd. If you're used to SQL, you can learn it, but it is a barrier to uptake, and each barrier makes it, people fall by the wayside and say, I don't see the benefit of going up this learning curve yet. You can show me it. Can we reduce this learning curve first? And then as soon as you get into this thing, you start talking about the various data formats for linked data, like Turtle and RDF XML, and RDF XML is not the poster child for the most user-friendly format that you can work with. So we had this issue, and basically the entire stack isn't that well suited to most developers' toolkits. So one of the questions we wanted to address, which is not the only question we have to address in doing this, is how can we lower that barrier? Basically, your average developer's experience of linked data is they get pointed at a Sparkle web page. It may be a blank form, or if they're lucky, it's got an example Sparkle query in it, and say, go knock yourselves out. Do some stuff with that. How can we make the landing page better than something like that? So the approach we're working on, this notion of a linked data API, you publish your data in linked data format, the Sparkle endpoint, you can still do all of that. How can we wire a web API on the front end to make it easier to access to it? So we want to be able to publish simple RESTful endpoints, not just for individual items like schools, but for sets of items. So I want to be able to say, in educationdata.gov.uk, /doc/school is the set of all things that data.gov is talking about, which are of type school, basically all schools in the country. They're in the edubase. And then I want to be able to say, okay, from there, let's just narrow it down to the schools within a district whose name is Oxford, and just have that as a REST API I can just go and point to, no magic queries or anything. I'd like to be able to go to individual things. So reference data.gov.uk/department is a list of all government departments. You can go and reference that. That brings you back data. BIS, Business Innovation, whatever, brain's gone. BIS department is an example, and there you can go to that, you get data on that individual department. But then you want to be able to say, now we've published this endpoint, can you slice the data a little bit finer yourself? Again, without having to get into the full power of a query language until you need to. So can we take a list, so another one on the reference.data.gov.uk site is a list of all MPs. Gives you a list of all MPs wherever they are. If you look at that data, you see, they're members of parties. Members of parties have names. Can I just filter that list by the MPs whose party name is Conservative and just get Conservatives? And that's the sort of thing you don't take very much to be able to see how you can move around that. When you do that, you need to get the data back. We want to get the data back in easy-to-use formats, such as JSON. Everybody says they'll give you linked data back in JSON, but the JSON may look a bit like RDF mangled through it, so it's not like a normal developer would think of their JSON. We want JSON in a convenient, easy-to-use, simple form. We want to give it back in XML form, so you can use XSLT to transform it to your heart's content, which is a pain to do over RDF XML. Yes, we want to give back RDF XML to all the RDF formats. And if you just put your browser at one of these endpoints, we want it to give a web page that people can work with. It's not just a raw list of the data, it's a web page that you can look around. So basically, a group of us have said, this is a good idea. We've produced a specification, open specification, and when you can use it. We've done 3 open source implementations, one in PHP, 2 in Java. Anyone can use those. Then people, and especially Jenny Tennyson here, has worked magic with XSLT to wrap an HTML renderer on top of this. And all of that is live at data.gov.uk, and we can go and look at it. So with any luck, if the web's working and all of that, that's what we're going to do next for the next little piece. So if I go to, for example, yes, good. So this is one of those web pages. It's gone to a query to a Sparkle endpoint underneath. It's brought back data in a convenient form. XML, an XSLT script has run over it and said, here's all the departments. So we've gone to reference.data.uk/department. Here's all the departments. We scroll down this, and we see actually what we have is, okay, we've got maybe about 20 departments in here because we've automatic paged it, and you can go through pages. But we've also got, down the right-hand side, a set of ways of working with this data that can now allow you to explore it. So in particular, what we've brought back against departments is a whole load of different stuff about what's within the department, what the name is, how they connect. And we've predefined a set of useful views and allowed you to say, I don't want this piece of information, I want that piece of information, I want to sort it by this one, simple clickable things, all of which is not a sort of a custom interface built for just this data set. It's a generic tool running over any such linked data that you've published through the API. So we can say, okay, I only want the minimal view of this data, just so I can see the wood for the trees. Come on, there we go. Go through that. And then, of course, I can click around it. I can go into a particular department, such as business innovation and skills, which reminds me of what the S was when I couldn't remember it before. Hello. Okay. Business innovation skills. Now we've drilled down a bit. It's got some more data, such as all the units within that department. We go into a unit, such as the Economic Policy and Analysis Group. It brings us a set of data on what's in that unit. In particular, in this case, it's bringing us back the information on the posts, the organogram information of who is within that department, what are the posts, who holds the post, how do you get contact with them. So we sort of drill down a set of connected data, but this endpoint, which is this pile of data about MPs and government structure, there's other endpoints related to it. So part of what you configure with the API and part of what Jenny's tool does is to allow you to say nearby things. So at the moment we're looking at a view of units within government departments. There's another one here which is statistics about those units. The statistics in this case is actually going to be salary information. So we sort of built in not just how you can drill down the data and slice and dice it, but the nearby information that could be relevant to the task you're doing at the moment. So now we're looking at a load of stuff which is basically raw statistical data about the cost of, the total salary of the report to a particular person. And as part of that, it's saying things like, oh, I see just numeric data. So I'll produce a little histogram of the numeric data. That might be useful to you. I'll show you mean variance and where this falls on it. And each one of these, as I've been clicking around, has been building up a URL in the top that shows you how you can get that data live at the moment. You can just put that in, put a .json on the end, put a .ttl on the end, and you can get that data raw, and you can just stick that in your app, which means you can build an entire end-to-end. I can go and find this data via a convenient user interface. I can get a web API that will return me easy to consume JSON, and I can build an application on top that doesn't need an entire RDF toolset. What sort of applications can we build on top? Dan?
Okay, so I'm just going to show you what can be built using JSON provided by the linked data API. Now this is, right, the colours aren't great, it should be a little bit lighter, but what you can see, he just showed you a list of departments and just typed in .json and you just got a list of departments with their units and their posts in JSON format. So this is just been converted into a visualization structure plugin which I'm using, and it's ended up visualizing departments, the units within those departments, and then if you click through to a unit, you see posts within the unit. All the way through this visualization, there's an effort made to show where this data's come from. So any API calls made, there's a description and there's the address from where you can find the data. And then the properties and parameters I use on the API to tailor the data specifically for use in this application. So if I go to a use case, if you drill down towards a post within a unit, this will load up on organogram. Now, different API calls are made here to load posts. So 2 API calls have been made here. The first one retrieves information about the root post, and it offers all the different formats. If you're a developer, if you like what you see on the screen in the visualization, you can grab it. You can go back to the API in the HTML viewer, browse around, maybe veer off in a different direction towards statistics or anything else pulled on the right-hand side, and it keeps letting you discover. And the second API call, it says I've used a parameter and that's where I've got the information from. These are the formats available, go and explore as well. So there's nothing hidden here between the API, data and this visualization. It's a direct representation of what can be accessed, and it's just converted in the browser using JavaScript and HTML. Thank you.
Great, thanks Dan.